Dear viewers, hello and welcome to a newer episode of Face to Face here on Press TV. Today we sit down with the Deputy of Iraq's House Speaker, Mr. Aram Sheikh Mohammed, who is himself a key figure and heavyweight senior political member of the Goran movement, a Kurdish opposition movement which is known for its staunch resistance against the ruling Kurdish parties in Iraq's Kurdistan region. Thank you very much for joining us. This is really a pleasure and an honor. I know this is a very rare and exclusive interview. You don't do a lot of interviews, it seems.
Well, thank you very much for having the opportunity with you. This is my first interview with the Press TV.
We're going to start with the most obvious question. We know that a high-profile Kurdish delegation has arrived to Baghdad. They have met with the Iraqi Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi, with President Fuad Massoum, and with House Speaker Salim al-Jabouri. Can you tell us about the purposes and the main outcomes from this visit? Also, why do we find that the Barzani-led Kurdish Democratic Party and the Talibani-led Patriotic Union of Kurdistan are absent from this delegation?
I'm warmly welcoming you. Thank you very much for coming and for the opportunity again. Regarding the question, they didn't finish yet, actually. They are just continuing the negotiations, or let's say a series of the meeting. And according to my information, the delegations is contained from the Goran, the Change Movement Party, and the Islamic Gathering, and a new list formed by the Dr. Barham Salah, which is the Alliances of the Justice and Democracy. So these three sides, they have a common things, they agreed on it, and they have a sort of political program. They recently announced it. So this is a base, and I think this is a part of an answer for your questions about why the KDPs and PUK is formally, they are not in the delegation. As I told you, a part of this is related to these three parties is they have common things together, and two of them already, they made their decisions and they withdrew from the government and they announced to be in opposition again. The people's demand in Kurdistan regions after what happened in the last September, what was so-called the referendum process. This led to the sort of economic catastrophe in Kurdistan regions, disasters in relationship, losing so many areas which they were under the controls of the Peshmerga and the Kurdistan region. They all been having a new situations. The areas which is called the disputed area led to the became out of the controls of the Kurdish controls, and also led to the internally displaced people. And beside of this, there were a sort of accumulated issues left behind because of the disturbance of or having no relations between Baghdad and Erbil. And of course, there were also political issues in Kurdistan region that happened after the process or attempts of having the presidential laws modifications, which led to closing the parliament and shutting the parliament by the decision made by the KDP at that time. All these issues is led to a sort of a kind of the difficult situation, especially for the people. That's all became a sort of public demand and asking these three parties or these three sides to come to start the negotiation and to feel responsibility to mediate, at least for the sake of the people.
You discussed something, or you mentioned something about the withdrawal of some Kurdish opposition groups of their ministers from the Kurdistan regional government. Also, we know that the Goran associated House Speaker, Parliament Speaker, Kurdistan Parliament Speaker has also cast his resignation. There are a lot of developments going on in the Kurdish arena, and we see that there seems to be the birth of a lot of new Kurdish political parties. What can you tell us about these issues? First, why has Goran withdrew its ministers? Why has Mr. Yusuf Mohammed, the Parliament Speaker, cast his resignation? And why do you believe so many political parties are being born right now?
Since the first establishment of the Goran movement in 2009, the first 4 years, from 2009 until 2013, we created a strong opposition in Kurdistan region in the first time. So this 4 year led to a sort of change in the political arena and the political atmosphere in Kurdistan region. At the time, that was the first time to have let's say, a legal opposition or a political opposition. Political opposition known as having seats in the parliament and not to be a part of the government. That's what I mean. I don't mean that nobody was resisting the government and tried to be an opposition before us. I'm not saying that. The first time in the first 4 years, we called for so many things, actually. The people asked us and demanded and requested us that you have to take all what you are saying, what you are calling for it, and you have to go and to participate in the government and try to be to achieve and to implement what you believe in the government. That's why we participate in the government in 2013. We were having a sort of what's called the package of the reforms. And it was a full package and a strategy package of having a reform in Kurdistan region. These reforms was including the reforms in the banking system, how to arrange the salaries again, how to improve the salary systems, how to improve the justice and salaries, how to unify the Peshmerga forces, and how to make adjustments and maintenance of the public services, how to make the separations of the institutions from each other, having a strong and independent judiciary systems, how to have a strong parliamentary system, how to have a government. We tried a lot to do these kind of the reforms, but the biggest one that was a part of our idea and our belief at that time is to make changes in the law, which was called the presidential law. Because Masoud Barzani at that time, the KDP Secretary General, at that time he was out of the mandates actually. Because they, in 2013, they amended his duration to stay in his position, because he elected 2 times actually. The first was from the parliament according to the law, and the second was from the public elections. And according law, it was given 2 times to be in the presidential position, actually, to be a president of the Kurdistan region. So the law didn't allow them to stay anymore, but they prolonged it for them at that time. So we faced with this problem of having going to modify the law. And when the KDP realized that the power balance in the parliament is not going to prolong again or to amend the staying of the Masoud Barzani in the position, they made actually it is a sort of they shut down the parliament, and depending on the political decisions by the Politburo of the KDP, and they sent back our ministers to home, and all the Goran official personnels in the government, they send them back to home. Actually, they didn't allow the Speaker of the Parliament to go to the Parliament again. What I mean is, from the October 2015, we were not a part of the government. We were not. Our ministers was not going to their offices. They were not allowed. They prevented to be there.
Who prevented them? Sorry.
KDP.
The Barzani-led Kurdistan Democratic Party.
Yes.
They prevented the House Speaker from going to the
Yes,
Parliament.
they prevented the speakers, and they prevented our MPs to go to the Parliament. They prevented our ministers. So in the beginning, there were a sort of internal discussions inside our party to solve the issues, because we were in touch with the international communities, with the other parties. But then we faced recently with the process, which was a party process, the referendum process. It was a party decision, and the process of the referendum put us in a lot of, and added to the situation more difficulties actually. And that manner, with the remaining of the previous political issue that I told you and explained it to you, we thought that this government is failed actually. It's failed by all the manner, by all the meaning, And this government should be solved, actually. This government should go, actually. And we called for replacing this government with this sort of new temporary government. We call the rescue government. The responsibility, the only responsibility of this rescue government is to prepare a proper environment and situations to go for the elections, actually. That's why we withdrew from the government.
A lot of people would argue that you were just saying that the Kurdistan Democratic Party, led by former Kurdish President Masoud Barzani, had actually prevented Mr. Yusuf Mohammed, who is Kurdistan's House Speaker.
We are not pretending. It is a reality. It's happened, actually.
But a lot of people would argue that Mr. Barzani has already resigned. So how can he still, why is the Kurdish parliament still paralyzed?
They appealed the sessions of the parliament just only for the sake of the referendum. At that time they did it. At that time they did it. They just wanted to make a seal, a sort of legal seal for the referendum process. But in the end of all decisions, actually.
Why do you think the Kurdish parliament is, what do you think is preventing the Kurdish parliament from being effective?
It is the ideologies of the, I don't know how to call it, actually. My position don't allow me that much to have, I have to be very careful to how to choose the definitions. Actually, this is a sort of the passive ideas and ideologies that still they believe with the dictatorships and try to give all the things to the one persons to run all societies. And this sort of ideologies still the remainings of the, let's just say, the ideas of the ex-Soviet Union models party. That is the partisan models, actually. These models, the presidential models, having one party to rule all the societies, and these parties will be ruled by one political bureau, and these people in the political bureau are the most brilliant people they have, and they are the key persons of having the answers of all the issues of the society, and all them should be divided to one person. This will lead to the disaster in the political system. That's why we believe the parliamentarian system is the good and suitable systems. For all the issues, we think that we were calling for that the parliament or the House of Representatives should be the place that we put all the issues into this house to talk about it, to speak there and to speak loudly and in a transparent way, let the people listen to us and see what we believe and how we want to maintain the life and how we want to do the services, how we want to govern in the society. This is a part of our belief, actually.
We noticed also that in recent months following the September 25th Kurdish secession referendum, which was championed by former Kurdish President Masoud Barzani, we noticed that Goran was very opposed to this secession vote. Why is that?
Why we were, let's say, we were not opposed, we were against it, actually. One of them is myself. That's because we were not ready. The time was not good. You know, the decision-making process, a part of the decision-making process is related into the timing. The way that we are going to the independency is much more important than the independency in itself. This is very important. The time was not good. Diplomatically, we were not ready. All the international communities, all the embassies, all the ambassadors, even the delegations from the United Nations, they told us, don't do it. Then who is going to support this country in this small island, surrounded by the country? They don't believe it. And in the other things, actually, we were not ready economically. Because we warned them and we told them, please think twice, because the neighbor countries, they announced clearly, they said, don't do it. This is a big risk. Don't do it, because if you would do it, we would not keep silence, actually. And also internally we were not ready. There were no consensus about that. Big parties such as and the Islamic gatherings, we were not a part of this process. Even Inside the PUK, whom they were Politburo as members, they were a part of the referendum committee. Others in the leadership committee, they were not a part of this referendum. Some of them, so many of them, they talked loudly and they said this is not a good time for this. And then we just recently came out from, as I told you, a bloody war, and the situations, our Peshmerga forces, let's say our fighters, they were tired actually. And also another reason that why we were not with this referendum, because there were an accumulations and remainings of the political issues and disputes. As I told you, we were not having a parliament, and institutionally we were not ready. And this was not ratified by the parliament at this time. People from parties, they were sitting and they made that decision actually. They established and they announced a committee and they said we are going to make an independence. Then how comes? If you believe that you have institutions, you have a House of Representatives, you have a parliament, you have a government, and there are other parties actually, how comes if you want to create a country for me and to announce a country for me, and you are pretending that you are building a country for me, but I am not a part, and even you are not ready to listen to me, and even you are not ready to advise, to listen to any advices from me, and how comes this country will be do it, and especially for us like a Kurdish, we are living in a country, and Iraq is a diverse country. If you're going to make an analysis from the nationalities, it contains from the Kurd and Arab. And we have a different ethnic groups actually. Any one of these contents of this country has a sort of deep demographical roots in the other countries actually. The Kurdish is here, and Kurdish is available in Iran, in Turkey, and in Syria. We have Shia in Iraq. There is a Shia is back to back with the big countries and have a deep demographical roots in Iran and in the Gulf countries. You have Sunni. You have it's back to back to the so many Sunni countries actually. That means touching any kind of these contents will affect directly the demographical availabilities and exist in the other countries.
Why do you think Mr. Barzani insisted on holding the referendum? What is the motive in your opinion?
This question should be directed to him. I'm not going to answer on behalf of him. I'm just expressing my ideas and my party's ideas why we have this stance against the referendum process. It wasn't a good decision. It was a wrong decision, and we saw the consequences. The consequences make our saying and our claims true.
Why do you think the Israeli regime welcomed the secession vote?
I protest this. I protest this in the formal announcement. I did that even as a deputy speaker, because I think this is not a good decision, because we all after what's happened in the Middle East, especially what left behind the Daesh in the areas, we think that we should all try to have a peaceful process, not to increase the tensions. This decision was not good and was not serving the peace in the Middle East.
Recently in Iraqi Kurdistan, we noticed that Kurdish civil servants took to the streets, namely in areas east of Iraqi Kurdistan in Sulaymaniyah, in the province of Sulaymaniyah. We saw a lot of protesters go to the streets, and they were demanding reform in the political process in Iraqi Kurdistan. They were also demanding the delayed salaries. The protests turned to be very bloody. There was a very violent crackdown by security forces against these protesters. Why do you believe, first and foremost, there is a delay in the salaries? Second, why this bloody response from the security forces in Iraqi Kurdistan against the protesters?
That's again in the deep roots of this is because of the injustice. Usually, what we learned from our former leader, Kagdo Shirwan, is that usually the political, the people's demand start from asking for the public services. If the government or the rulers didn't respond to the public services, it will turn to the reform demand. And if the rulers didn't respond to the reforms, it will turn to the political demands, and it will ask for changing the systems and changing the regimes, actually, and changing the government. Why the KRG failed to pay the salaries for the people, that's because of the failed economic management whom they claimed for it. They said, we are going to sell our oil and we will start with and we are going to establish our independent economy. We witnessed with the bankrupt economy.
Where is the oil revenue going then?
It is all because of the corruption. It's going to the pocket of the people.
This is a question that was posed by Iraqi Prime Minister Abadi.
It's not only the Abadi's say, it is our say as well.
Who do you blame for those who have been killed? We know that at least 5 to 7 people have been killed. Around 400 to 600 people were arrested in Iraqi Kurdistan by security forces. Even some local channels have been shut down, including a very famous local channel, NRT. So who do you blame for this? Who is behind this?
Whom they are now governing the Kurdistan region. Whom they are ruling the Kurdistan region. The Kurdistan regional government are responsible for that.
Mr. Abadi also started paying some of the salaries for Kurdish civil servants, including those who are associated with the Water and Power Ministry. Also, he said that there are newer names being audited now to see if these names are indeed employees in Iraqi Kurdistan. How did you see the move by Mr. Abadi? And also, what do you make of his most recent comments saying that the salaries would have been paid by the Kurdish regional government had the oil revenues been actually going to the Kurdish regional government?
It's true. I agree with him. As you said, the last comment of him, and I agree with him. And regarding it is a two-part. Regarding the first side of your question is a two-part. The first part is related to some of the conditional negotiations between Kurdistan regions and the central government. It's related to handing over the border customs and also the airports, and also to give the oil revenues side by side. There are some technical processes. Today started actually, delegations from both sides to cleaning, as you said, the list of the salaries actually from the double or 3 times salaries. That is all available. And we hope that will lead to paying of the salaries. And the Prime Minister, Dr. Haider al-Abadi, he showed his readinesses to that. And we hope these issues will be solved and try to get common together.
The Islamic Republic of Iran had proposed to intervene or mediate between Kurdish political parties, also between Erbil and Baghdad, to sort of ease the tensions, because we know the situation.
Yeah, that is a sort of, always Iran try to have these sort of the attempts actually, which is a good thing actually. It is appreciated actually, because these mediations will serve to calm the situations and try to get more stability. Because as I told you, the stabilities in these countries will affect positively in these places. Will positively affect in the other sides actually. The stability in Iran will be good for the stabilities of Iraq, and the stabilities in Iraq and vice versa. It's true actually. It is not new. The Islamic Republic were always they were always assisting us, and they were always giving and supplying services to us actually since the ex-regimes actually. They were always a support and the backbone of our fighting and supporting us. The Ba'ath regimes actually, even from the 80s actually. And once again, they did these services actually, as I told you, is highly appreciated actually. What they apply to us in so many occasions is try to make us to be stronger, and they supported us in preventing entering Daesh into Erbil. I remember very well in 2015 actually it's happened. Which is a very good, and once again it's appreciated actually.
Final question regarding the budget. We know that Kurdish blocs have their comments in this regard. Also regarding the upcoming provincial and parliamentary elections. What is the points that the Kurdish parties are opposing? Also, what is their proposal for the solution? When should the elections be held?
The negotiation still is in the process, and we are appealing the discussions. I'm not saying the negotiation actually. The discussions is in the process actually between us and the government. We, as the presidency of the parliament, we made that decisions against to appeal the negotiation because the Kurdish blocs we have many notes about and remarks how to make some modifications actually regarding the shares of the Kurdistan regions and make some adjustments into it. We sent these comments to and remarks to the government, but unfortunately they responded that we feel that they are not going to make any changes actually. We hope that through the discussions with the government, trying to make the ideas to be more close to each other.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time, for the very valuable information that you gave us, and thank you very much, dear viewers, for joining us.